The show where anything goes. Motivation, mindset, recovery, philosophy, and life. We become who we are through what we experience. We all have a story, and this is My Backstory with Josh Boyer.
And there it is. My Backstory podcast with Jeff Bosley.
What's up?
What's up, man? I'm here in West Hollywood. This place, man, we were talking about on my way here. I grew up in the area, and I always despise coming down to the LA Hollywood area. It's traffic. When you guys think of LA traffic, this is it right here. This is the hub.
And this time, when you leave, you'll be fuck that Jeff Bosley. Why'd he do this to me?
My buddy lives right here on Hayworth. And so I didn't realize when you told me where the office was, I was like, oh, okay, cool. Yeah, I'll go down to West Hollywood. But I didn't really look at the coordinates of it. And then I pulled out, I was like, oh shit, this house is right here. So I hit him up. I was like, hey, dude, we gotta have dinner after this or something. Dude, I'm not gonna drive back. Shit.
I did this last night. I was in Santa Monica, and it was a 10-mile drive, and it was at that point 80 minutes. Yeah. I was like, I should just go fucking watch Endgame. Yeah, seriously. Just find 3 hours to kill.
It's a trip because it's not the mileage isn't that far. It's just that the traffic is horrendous.
Where I lived, the mileage was almost a 1-to-1 ratio of time to distance, because in Idaho, if it was a 5-mile drive, you just assume it'd probably take on the interstate 5 minutes. Yep. And if it was at least city streets, it'd be double. That was it.
I was just up there not too long ago, or maybe last year, in Medical Lake, Washington, and then my buddy lives in Hayden, Idaho.
Yeah, okay.
Which is 40 minutes apart. Yeah. So what a fucking beautiful place, man.
Yeah. There's every time I come into Hollywood, and again, anybody that lives here, no disrespect, but it refreshes my love for Idaho and Montana and maybe seeing a neighbor every 30 miles, it definitely takes some Musa for sure.
For sure, dude. So man, I want you to share your backstory, what your upbringing was like. And I think you have a very unique story going from, the military and then becoming an actor, what I mean? Where there are some people that have done it, but not that many, I mean? I think it's a very niche market.
Yeah, for sure.
I don't think people have the skills really to do it.
Like we were talking about before we recorded. Yeah, there's definitely the military has its benefits and its disadvantages to this world.
Totally.
The short of it is, I always call this the true Hollywood story answer. But normally when I say that, most of those stories are about a dead celebrity. The reason they do, if you make it on true Hollywood, that means you're dead, in a ditch on heroin.
Dancing with the Stars. Then
you have my permission recorded. If that day comes, you have my permission to assassinate me.
You guys heard it.
Heard it here first. The short version is I was raised mostly in Idaho. My father's a physician. I'm very fortunate in that. So some of my youth was Colorado and all that while he was doing medical school, and there was a divorce involved. And then the big chunk of my life was growing up in Idaho. That's where grade, early grade school to junior high to high school. And it's just a 70,000 person town, but it had a vibe of one of those small Texas cities where there's two high schools. They're both rivals, and it was funny, during football season, there are rival football teams, but that's also the same season as rodeo season. So you could actually play against each other on a Friday night, but since the rodeo teams were so small, you'd actually would consolidate on Saturday night and be the local high school team. So it was just one of those things. And I was telling somebody last night, my community, you'd actually know the guy's trucks. You'd be like, oh, there's Bosley's Land Cruiser. He got the new 35-inch BFG mutters, It was that kind of city. And and there was only one main hospital at the time. And, like I said, I was really fortunate. My father was a physician there. And
so you stayed with him after the divorce?
Yeah, I stayed with him after the divorce.
Swing that, dude. I want to know his secret.
That's back in the day. Well, that was the thing, is that was the kind of divorce. It was like a handshake. They had just had, I was 3, my brother was a newborn. And to this day, this sounds like I'm making it up, but they were just cool. You take him, peace. And my dad, this is before 4, I don't know how, I can't speak I know everything about it, but it was way before forced alimony and all that. Right. But my dad, to his credit, just did the right thing and helped. He's an ER doctor versus a single mother. Right. So he did the right thing and he helped, and they set it up. They said they kind of forced visitation. They didn't it's weird because they did it so amicably and almost business-esque that it created, now that I'm, 40, a weird distant relative, so like my birth mom, I call her Terry. My brother, my 100% brother, we're like cousins. So if we talk or text, fine. But we like the fact I have a 100% blood brother that I can't think right now when was the last time I spoke to him.
Wow.
But it's not because we resent each other. Again, that's from my perspective. I got to stay with the doctor. I mean, let's not be, I had to dad's credit, I had a little better setup. He did everything he could for that side of the split. But brother went with the latchkey kid, single mother thing, which I don't know how many but I know tons, especially now that I moved out to LA, tons of, it sounds shady. I know tons of single mothers. That's my hunting grounds.
That's right, dude. Easy picking. That's hilarious.
What's that? The comedian that goes, I hang out at the maternity ward because I know they put out.
Oh, dude, that's fucking funny, dude.
So she stayed, they did that, and like they did joint custody, like they do visitations over the summers and all that. But then as we grew up, you kind of become an asshole when you're in junior high and high school. Totally. And so we just kind of drifted apart, and there was no resentment. I think he probably maybe had, if I was the sibling that kind of went on that side of the equation, I'd be like, asshole. Yeah. But there was no drama. It just, we drifted apart.
Did he ever want to come and stay with your dad and be like,
I bet he did. That's the weird thing is the fact I don't know the answer to that because you think we'd be, again, we're 100% brothers. I would imagine like if one of us ever requested that, they made it happen. So to my parents' credit, if that was asked of them, they would make it happen. Yeah. But then after a while, we both just quit asking and he actually went into the Marines after high school. And just drifted apart, and she remarried. This is effed up. That was the last time I saw her. This was like grade school is when she remarried. So that was the last time I saw my birth mom. And she remarried and they had another kid. My father, shortly after, maybe a couple years after the divorce, he remarried, and the woman whom I call mom, she's by definition my stepmom. Yeah. I have a sister who's by definition my half sister, but I'm closer to her than my blood brother. Yeah. And then, so yeah, we were raised in Idaho doing that, and nothing. It seems very anticlimactic, but we had a pretty normal life up through high school and college, and then the whole, as cliche as it is, 9/11 happened, and I always knew, like growing up, I was like, I want to be in the military, but I didn't come from a military world, and so an occasional grandfather here and there served. Yeah. But it wasn't really like shoved down our throat. I was just, you do what you see. And I was raised around academia. So I saw my father, he became a physician. I saw my uncles, they became physicians. I saw, that world. So I was like, I guess I'm supposed to go to college and go to pre-med. And then college sucked. I went off to Washington State for college, and I'm not a big partier. I never was, but I didn't do anything cool. Like I didn't do drugs. I didn't drink. I watched a lot of Spider-Man, and I didn't graduate. So it was like 4 years at a private college watching Spider-Man. So, that was a great private tuition. And then after that, I took a year off and dropped out. And then I realized, holy shit, college is way easier than the real world. And like that year off, I was doing, I was working at a truck company, like the whole 72-foot truck trailers. And then I'd also work as a security guard at the nights, and I was a host at a Tony Roma's during the weekdays. I was like, shit, college was way nicer. Right. So then at that point though, I had burned through all of my, my academic scholarships and everything. So I moved back to Idaho to get in-state tuition. So I was back in my hometown. That's the biggest kick to the ego balls, is moving back home and moving back in your parents' house. And I go, I pretty much failed at college. And then, that's when I started college again. I started taking theater here and there, and I was actually in the theater program there when 9/11 happened. And I kept putting it off. And it truly was just like the older you get, the more, I would definitely say fear, and you get comfortable with what you consider normal. Yep. And college is comfortable. I don't care if you're paying for it or not. It's way more comfortable than, combat, and I kept putting it off. And it wasn't until I was a volunteer firefighter in my hometown where I just assumed to be special forces, you had to be a certain age. And I'm really OCD, but for some reason, I never researched that assumption. Right. And I was talking to some reservist that was a firefighter at this fire department. I made that comment, and he goes, no, you can test for special forces at your age. I was like, oh shit, I can. So I went to the recruiter the next day and was like, I can be a Green Beret if I want to go infantry in Green Beret. And he goes, yeah. I was like, oh shit. Okay. Enlisted next day. And then the day after that, proposed to my, at the time, girlfriend, now ex, and did the Green Beret thing. And I was in North Carolina for a while and then Colorado. We're at a theater school. So there's a lot of,
I apologize for the background.
It can be a little, artsy fartsy out there.
No worries.
And then did that for a hot minute and was a firefighter after that in my town of Colorado. And then this is getting really abbreviated. After 2 years on the fire service, I'd gone through the divorce, just had a dog, and against all my wiring, just pretty much said fuck it, and did the thing I promised I would never do, which was sell all my possessions, pack my car, and drive to LA. And to this very second, I'm like, all right, cool. Hopefully I can eat tomorrow. It was just against all my wiring to, you're used to it too. You're used to that salary, that paycheck, that comfort. The unknowns of combat are still way more known than chasing your dream, whatever that dream is. It's comfortable. So that brings us here today, where I'm roaming West Hollywood. If you're from LA, saying you're roaming West Hollywood could probably mean a completely different thing.
Be taken out of context a little bit.
Yeah. For people not from LA, they just assume it's a location, but it's definitely a vibe, if you will.
Yeah, definitely.
And a type of person.
For sure. So did you, was your dad pushing you to go to college, or was that something cause I have a buddy that I grew up with who I'm still friends with to this day. And I always liked the fact that in his household, it wasn't that his parents were pushing him to go to college. It was more that was part of the dinner conversation.
Yeah,
it was part of the, when you're at the dinner table, it wasn't like, oh, if you're going to go to college, it's where are you going to go to college?
Yeah. And that's how my dad was, because it was weird. It was this passive inception. Like you said, he didn't say, if you're going to college, what are your thoughts on college? He's like, so what college are you looking at? Right. So it was kind of wait, I guess I'm going to college. So it was this weird, and to my dad's credit, he's a fucking genius. I hated fighting with him because he's too goddamn smart. So he somehow just incepted me, and I just assumed I'm going to college.
Right.
And to this day now, in retrospect, now that he looks back, he's, super proud of me and all that crap. We had our fights, nothing surprising with fathers and sons. But I think had I said no college after high school, that would have been a battle royale. It was just in my family, it was expected you go to higher education.
Right.
And, my younger sister, she fit that mold and it worked for her. I went to college because you're supposed to,
right.
And my motivation to do well in it was zero, because I just did it because you're supposed to.
Right.
And, proof's in the pudding. People that want to go to college do well. But, I wanted to get out of the city, but that was huge fights with my father was, the whole, I don't want to be in college, especially the dropout conversation after 4 years at a private school going, I'm going to drop out and be a personal trainer.
Right.
But that's a big fuck you to my dad.
Washington State private?
No, it was in Washington State.
Oh, I thought you meant Washington State. I was like,
not the college. It was called Pacific Lutheran University, and it was in Tacoma, Washington. It was in Washington State. Yeah. So
it's right outside of Seattle, then, huh?
Exactly. Yeah. In the armpit, in Tacoma. If you're familiar with Seattle in that area, it's the place that smells like the paper mill. There's a paper mill in Tacoma where when the wind shifts, oh God, it's the worst smell ever. It's the opposite of beautiful. Right. And I honestly picked that college just because they had ironically, I had crazy high grades. So they gave me the most money for my academic scholarships. And I burned through those really fast because I never went to class. Like I said, Spider-Man.
Is your dad still a doctor?
He just barely retired a couple of years ago. He's the kind of guy, he's old school. So he was born in 1950. So, I mean, you're familiar with medicine, and the modern medicine world is not what it was when he started.
Not even close.
Obviously they have to maintain their credentials and all that stuff, but it's just the, I liken it to now modern doctors are buried in their, I almost said PDA, like a Palm Pilot even exists. Jesus.
Just dated yourself.
Yeah, where's my stylist? But they're buried in their patients are a name, or a number, not a name. And but it also sucks because that's the world we live in. I don't know how many, I've been in a lot of ERs on both sides of the equation, and, you don't have time to do the, get to know him buddy thing. Like my dad, that's how my dad was wired. So he'd be a great doctor in a smaller community, but it was time for him to retire anyway. Cause just all the bureaucracy of medicine, and then you get like, there's even, this is getting down this medical weird wormhole, but, if like the American Heart Association coincidentally gets sponsored by a new medicine, their you were an EMT, so their algorithms would coincidentally change when it comes to how to treat cardiac patients. And my dad would fight that, and he's extremely intelligent, but it's just not the world. It was time for him to call it good. And it just.
Did he stay up in Idaho, or
he was in Idaho most of the time, but he's like a fixer. He can't coast. So as soon as the nest got empty, he ended up going to Nebraska, where he was born, and he helped rebuild, literally and metaphorically, the emergency room in this hospital in Nebraska, because he's really good at, ironically, modernizing systems, but he was still an old soul. So he went there for a while, fixed the ER. He was like an administrator for a hot minute. And then he went to Utah, and he was dabbling in the emergency rooms medicine there. And then finally he's good, and he's really good with money. He's really, really good with money. So he's planned to retire for a long time. And
did he stay in Utah or what?
Yeah, they're in Utah now doing the retired thing, and he's driving my mom nuts. Yeah. Like he's, I think, you've been around enough doctors. I think physicians, especially emergency room physicians, it takes a certain brain, whether it's even people in the military, it draws a certain, if you want to call it the type A barrel chested guy, right. He can't turn that off, and so he needs to be at work. So that's a current development. If my mom's sanity, compared to his time at home. But that was what was crazy about him being an ER doctor is as an 18 Delta, we'd compare notes. I taught him a lot of tricks that he actually used in the ER, and he had a lot of lifetime of experiences that he could pass on to me versus some stuff. So it was really weird to talk shop as a kid who I thought was completely inferior to this genius. Because medical school still blows my mind. He went back in the day when they had to memorize the PDA or the PDR. Yep. Now doctors are looking at, now Palm Pilots or iPhones, right. And he had that shit memorized. It blows my mind when I would see him just rattle off medicines, so he's a good dude. So
why don't you walk through how, like, when you left college, you went back home and you're like, shit, man, like this isn't going to work for me. So going to the military, like what? Yeah. How was that process? What was that process to be like, hey, I'm going to the Army and then getting into special forces and going to selection? Like, how did that all work?
That was, so I had taken the year off from college, essentially dropped out, and then went kind of back home to Idaho with my tail between my legs. And I was definitely in that, on just haze of what am I doing with my life? And so I still had, FAFSA, the student aid. So I went and just got student loans and just, I don't know, we all do that stupid student loan or, credit card debt. Just, you're like, I'll figure it out later when I'm very successful because I'll be able to pay this off. And that's horseshit. But I just burned through those student loans and just kept going to school because I was like, again, I think that's what you're supposed to do. And I was actually ironically working as a security guard at the hospital my dad's an ER doctor at, and just was coasting and doing all that crap and just basically scraping by surviving. And then like 9/11 happened and I was just really scared about it going down. And then finally, after talking to that dude, I was like, screw it, this is what I want to do. And I honestly, because my brother is a Marine, I guess you're supposed to say. I went to
Marine, always Marine.
Yeah, exactly. No offense, anyone. Don't come knocking down my door. Just get back to your crayons. Right. Right. I went to the Marine recruiter and it was lunchtime and they were gone. Yeah. And I know, as far as I remember, maybe it's changed since because shit's gone really south in all the branches. Yeah. But at the time I knew, like, obviously, if you're, a regular, relatively fit dude in the Marines, odds are you're going to be a rifleman and work your way. And, I definitely knew I wanted to do some sort of special operation thing. So at that time, I was like, how do I get to force recon? You can kind of, in the Marines, it seems like you can kind of lean your way, but there's still like no official contract to say you'll go to force recon. And at that age, and this is still something I always questioned if it was the right decision, but I was just under 30 at the time. My best friend was an infantryman in the Army, and he'd given me advice my whole life. And he was the one that said, you're old, you have a lot to offer, you have a lot of life experience. Don't go 11 Bravo, which is the Army infantry, and then go submit to go to selection. He goes, people are going to hate you, but do the X-ray thing. And I don't know if you've heard it. Yep. The X-ray thing, for those who don't know, it's basically, it's what the Navy SEALs have. It's basically from street to trying out to be a Navy SEAL or trying out to be a Green Beret. It's like the streamlined thing. It's not necessarily faster, but it doesn't, you kind of skip maybe 5 years of another job in the Army. Totally. And I opted for that. And to me, that was the incentive to like not fuck up. Like, because I knew if you don't make it, you go where the hell they want you.
Yep.
And so that was that made it like more intense for me. It got rid of my safety net is by saying you're an X-ray, and I didn't want anything other than that. Like, I knew if I didn't become a Green Beret, I'd better get epilepsy or something. There was no other option. So getting rid of that safety net, going the X-ray program made me just do it. And at that age, I didn't have a lot of shelf life left to, spend 6 years in the infantry and then go to, and especially probably know I wouldn't survive. Yeah. Because with all due respect to the infantry, sadly, a lot more, I think, them statistically would be perished because there's just, it's weird. So I wanted to make sure I was a Green Beret and went in, like I said, so I went to the Marine one, they were closed. I was like, all right, fine, I'll go into the Army. I knew SEALs ran a lot more than swim. So I didn't even look in the Navy. But I honestly, and it was funny, my parents knew this growing up. They found some old flag when I was a kid. I had a Green Beret flag that I don't remember having. So apparently I wanted to be a Green Beret even when I was a kid. And it was probably because of PTSD Rambo. Went in and, everything went well. Like I said, I proposed the next day. Like what a douche. So I proposed and then went off to Fort Benning. I just left my family to deal with the bridezilla stuff.
Right.
And then, I went through basic training, everything. I was older than my drill sergeant. Fitness has always been a thing for me. So, and I knew a lot of basic training or boot camp or whatever you want to call it. It's all a head game. Obviously you got to hit some check marks and gates, and those I'm sure in all services have changed a lot. But I did that, and I actually would watch fellow 18 X-rays wash out. And then, this literally happened. An X-ray friend of mine didn't make it, got cycled into the 82nd Airborne, which is the Airborne Infantry Division out of Fort Bragg. And he died on his first deployment like a month later in an IED. And it's obviously horrendous and sad, but that proved that, or that kind of fueled that fear of like, don't fuck up, Jeff. Yeah. If you don't get this X-ray, if you don't get that green beanie, because you're in the X-ray program, you could be dead next. And that was my really malicious way to look at if I fuck up. And everything went pretty swimmingly. I wasn't the first in class. I can't run for shit, so the runs were horrible. But it went relatively well. Graduated, and I wanted the Delta thing because I do love medicine. I do like medical stuff, and that I luckily got the Delta job. And as you know from other Deltas, it's a long fucking school. It makes college look like a joke. Like I look at anatomy and physiology in college, it was like 45 minutes Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Right. And the Delta program was like 8 hours a day, 5 days a week. Yeah. And that helped having college. The Delta program sucks. It really sucks. So if you aren't college savvy, your study skills are shit. But also, if you had college, you're going to be really burned out. So I hated the Delta thing because I was so sick of college and studying. Yeah. But I was inherently, I'm a really boring loner loser guy. So I didn't have any temptation to go party and do all that shit. So I just buckled in and, slowly degraded my marriage and just studied a lot. Yeah. And and then I finished it, and I got the language that assigned me to 10th Group in Colorado, and which is awesome because I was born in Colorado, and I would take Colorado over Fort Bragg, North Carolina, any day of the week. So at the time, my wife and I moved to Colorado and did that for a while. And that's the Green Beret answer.
Oh man. Did you have any deployments under your belt? Or
yeah, definitely deployed. We did, we do all those weird little J sets and training things for sure, where you're not a combative, but you still run around with a gun and avoid getting shot. But definitely we went to, I was at the tail end of Freedom, and then the beginning of New Dawn. And then we had an Africa thing here and there. Luckily I deployed because that would have sucked. Even though I was in like total like less than 10 years, I would have been really pissed if I didn't deploy. Because I know a lot of Green Berets before the Middle East shit kicked off. They're Green Beret since the 80s. Like actually I have a Green Beret friend in here in LA. He's actually got me a lot of work and connections. He's been here for like 20 years as a stuntman. When he was a Green Beret, he actually barely deployed, if anything. I mean, sadly, we need war to do our job, and he didn't have a war for a while.
You spend all this time training. Yeah. That's what you're training for. So,
I mean, and when you're an EMT or as a firefighter, Green Beret, our jobs require negative things to happen. Right. Green Berets, there's a little bit of that diplomacy shit we do that's not always just trigger pulling direct action missions, but at the end of the day, all the stuff we do is foundation. Its foundation is conflict.
Yeah.
So
at what point did you decide, like, hey, I'm you're getting out, you got your honorable discharge, and you're like, okay, cool, like, I'm going to get into acting. Like, how did that? Like,
that's a weird thing I glazed over. When I was in Washington, I did take a couple theater things. Like, as a kid, I definitely, like my parents to this day are like, why are we surprised now he wants to play pretend for money? And I definitely took shit to the, when Top Gun came out, I was the kid that got like a refrigerator box, and I didn't just make a plane. I also made a plane with like working flaps, and I had strings to the flaps to the joystick that actually functioned, and one
of the best movies ever.
Yeah, exactly. Until number 2 comes out, and we're like, oh, you bastard.
It'll never be as good.
No, nothing. Yeah.
No way.
Yeah. That's somebody he has like a 5th mortgage he needs to pay.
Right. Exactly.
They just back that beep, 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 that truck of cash.
Right.
But yeah, so the bug was always there, but because I was raised in that practical world, I didn't even remotely entertain it. And it's not like my dad beat me and said, you'll go to college and how dare you do stupid artistic shit. It just didn't I couldn't wrap my mind around it.
Yeah.
Took a theater class here and there when I was doing the pre-med thing, did the dropout thing. I did some random agency modeling shit in Washington. Nothing. When I went back to college in Idaho, I was trying to be practical and chase the dream, if you will, before 9/11. And that was, I did sports medicine. So like college taping, college injuries, like the guy that's, for those of you who don't know, it's the guy that pretty much is with the sports teams. Yeah. So they're not personal trainers. They're not trainers like physical or PTs, but yeah, they're injury guys. Studied that and was doing a theater major. And then eventually I just kind of quit taking classes for the sports medicine and just kept retaking theater classes. So I have enough credits to have a master's, still no degree, Yeah, it's pretty, awesome. Yeah, what a giant waste of academia.
It's just a piece of paper that says no.
Yeah, and we all know that. Yeah, unless you're going to be like specific jobs like a doctor or a lawyer where you need that.
Yeah.
The world doesn't require degrees. And that's what's frustrating for some people. But for me, I'm not losing sleep on it. And then did the military thing. And then when I got out, I still tried to hold on to that practicality. So that's why I was a firefighter for a couple of years. While I was actually discharging from the military, I had enough medical training to bypass the EMT to get to the fire department. And that helped me get into the fire department and that. And then when the divorce went down and all that, I was like, fuck it. And I was a theater geek. I was a theater major. I loved playing pretend. And it was just that perfect storm. Like one of my tattoos, this Y one that you can see.
Yeah.
There was the same. A friend of mine hired me to do a movie in LA. And this is the one I lived in Colorado for a music video for 9 Electric, a band that nobody's heard of, but it's awesome. And they flew me here and I was like, oh, it was fun. That was cool. And then I was hanging out with a friend. She's very much one of those friends, no disrespect, but super hippie universe. Like, oh, it'll, put it out to the universe. And I'm like, oh, fuck you. Like every time, one of my closest friends, but I can't stand that shit. But I'm trying to actually literally currently be better at it now. And it's just not my wiring.
Yep.
She said, and so she's like the AC here. She said, you should just do it. What do you got to lose? You got a dog, move to California and do it. And then that next day, a friend of mine from the military, this RD, said, you got nothing to lose, do it. And I was like, I got to go home and be practical. And I went back to Colorado. And then Jim Carrey had a commencement speech that was floating around the internet for a while and that's this. This isn't Jesus Christ. This is Jim Carrey's tattooed on my arm. Awesome. He had a speech that said, one of his lines that hit me was, don't live a life of fear disguised as practicality. And I, no joke, the next day resigned from the fire department. And I was like, screw it. And I had you can call it a moment of weakness or whatever, but the practicality that I've been raised with, just had a vacation for a minute. And so these people are why I do what I do or why I've done what I've done. Came out here. And I think honestly being military, or even more specifically, just my experience as a Green Beret, coming out to LA was not a joke per se, but the things that matter or the things that suck. My barometer, and I'm sure you'll get it, it's your suck barometer is way different.
Yep.
You know, we were joking earlier, you know, people were bitching about their feet on set. I'm like, oh, have you ever seen a foot rot off? Have you ever seen that, you know, from a ruck march where you don't have a foot? So yeah, I think that really helped. And honestly, because I was a theater geek and despite my military background, a lot of people, once they get my resume and once they realize, holy shit, this school we're at, it's kind of cocky or braggy to say, it's like one of the biggest schools, like Uma Thurman trained here, De Niro. This De Niro has a kid here. Like this is awesome. Like a no joke school. And so like a lot of people, like, so I applied the thing that got me through Green Beret life to my Hollywood life, if you want to call it that. Like, I will do everything to the 100% to the fullest, almost to the point where it's unhealthy, and just to be the best at it I can. And so it's just like the Green Beret mentality, if you will. So it's, yeah.
Where do you see yourself going? Like, what do you want to do with it? Like when you came out here, how long did it take you before you had your first gig?
That part of it while I was I was in the fire department because it has an amazing, they have awesome schedules, no matter what.
You like work like 2 days a month. Yeah,
exactly. Pretty much. And then if you sub shifts, you work no days a month, yet you still somehow got paid. Yeah, nobody resigns from the fire department for that reason. So I'm like one of the fools that resigned. But you know, you could get the way the rotation worked, you'd have 4 days off every like 6 days or something. It's been a while. But then if you subbed a couple shifts, you could turn it into a week off and just owe somebody a shift and you're good. So during those times off, I'd travel back and forth to LA while I'm still getting my, you know, firefighter salary. And I do all this shit. This was like my Green Beret, like recon thing was I'm going to feel it out, get all my shit wired before I even moved there. So I was still getting my firefighter salary when I came to LA and felt it out, found out all the bull crap that people find out the hard way. Got a couple jobs lined up before I even moved here. That Green Beret guy got me a job. And I kind of came here promising I wouldn't have 7 jobs. No disrespect to the people doing that, but I came here saying I moved to LA to be an actor.
Right.
And that was all I did. I've had like one bouncer job and a random contracting job, but that's all I've done for 5 years. So I almost had I had enough savings from I had garage sales. I did a Craigslist garage sale of everything I owned in my house. And I just posted my address on Craigslist and said, come in and buy shit. So people would just buy shit out of my cupboards. They're like, is that for sale? I'm like, yeah, take it. You know, like I just was like, my house was for sale. So I had all that savings and I just moved out here to do that. And so, I mean, I've been out here for 5 years and it's huge ego. It's all hugely based on ego of I didn't want to come out here and half-assed anything, you know, like I didn't want to kind of be a Green Beret if that even exists. So I was like, I came out here to only do one thing. And if that requires me to not eat or, you know, not pay a bill, I refuse to get a personal trainer job on the side. And I'm lucky it's worked out. And some, you know, it comes at a cost of, you know, health and sanity, but I refused. My end game is I've always said I want to pay my bills doing it, because, you know, that makes the world go round. But my end game is, you know, like if I could pick somebody, you know, like I'm really enamored with like, and this is the one thing a lot of people don't think about, I guess, until they get out here is, yeah, it's a business though. So like for me to say, you know, I want to be the next, I can't even think, like Robert Downey Jr. Like that's cool and all, but he's a smaller guy and he has quirky roles. And so like, that's the artistic side of the business of going, well, that's not a practical goal because you guys aren't going to be in the same roles. So right. I try to look at like just the malicious business side of it. So if I was to describe my end game, I'm like, well, there's big, pretty guys and I know what I look like. I know I don't look like Danny DeVito. You know, I definitely.
Oh, come on. You saw the movie Twins, right?
I did. I'm not the leftover goo.
Right.
You know, so like I'm aware of what I have to offer and it's a catch-22 because a lot of people will see me and go, that guy's probably just a big dumb caveman that can't act. And then they go, oh shit, he can't act, but he looks like the big dumb caveman. So what do we do? So I look at I'm like, well, Hugh Jackman's a good looking, pretty big guy. So like maybe that's a career trajectory. I can't do musicals for fuck all. But I try to look at him or Pratt or like, you know, like the business side of where would I be castable? You know, I'm not going to kid myself and think I'm going to be, even though I think I'm semi-funny, on paper, you don't look at me and think I'm funny.
Right.
So I'm like, oh, fuck it. I'm not out to be, I can't even think of a comedian. Kevin Hart.
Right.
That's the most opposite guy I could pick.
Right.
The short black guy.
Hilarious as hell, though.
Yeah. So yeah, my end game is to do it. And if that comes, and everybody says like, what's your plan B or your 10-year plan? I honestly, and this is like the most hippie put out in the universe thing I could probably ever say, is like, I don't have one. Like, I really don't know. I got to succeed or die. And that's really cliche, like really stereotypical, but that I can't. And the longer this goes on, I'm actually losing skills. It's like the more I do this artsy fartsy actor shit, the less skills I have to offer the world. Right. You know, I still have the Green Beret cobwebs, you know, and I still go shooting and all that, but I'm running out of skills to offer as employment anyway. So I kind of, at some point I was like, just gotta knuckle down and do this. But if fame and money and all that come with it, cool, bonus, whatever. I have a lot of friends, and especially being military, that will keep me grounded if that goes that route. But I just really want to pay my bills and be able to take care of my family and myself, because the city is absurd the money is ridiculous. And you don't have to be Chris Pratt. I mean, this isn't some secret. Like, when you get union work, which is pretty much all the jobs, the starting rate is $900 for 8 hours. Right. And that's Hollywood. That's just how ridiculously absurd this place is. So if you get, like our fellow friend, I won't say his name, but like, I think if he's on that show every day for $900 a day, you're pretty good, you know. And if you're not done with your money, you can be quote unquote successful and rich, and you don't actually have to be Chris Pratt or Hugh Jackman. You can actually do quite well before you get those $1 million contracts if you're not stupid.
How would you define success? For you?
Sounds so childish. Doing what I want, you know, like. Yeah, not to put my foot down and pout, but yeah, doing what I want and setting a goal and doing it. That's success to me. There's all the ancillary things that come with it, and a lot of people define it by money and toys and all that crap. But it's really doing what I want, and then the fallout of what I can do with that. Like, I really want to help. Success to me will be when I can. The day I'll know where I can sit down on my couch. Like, I always called it the couch metaphor. Like, every time I got out of a school from the Q course, or when got the Green Beret, or whatever school we had to go through, when we were out in the field or wherever hell on earth we were at, when we got home or picked up our bags or got home from the deployment, when you sit on your couch in your home, that is where you're like, oh, fuck, I'm done. I made it. And then you just, that moment, that kind of combat pause, that moment in this career will be when I don't have to worry about money. And that doesn't mean billions of dollars rich, but just can relax and then use that to, sounds like Robin Hood, to help others, to help my family, to help my sister, to help, you know, a lot of these people in these tattoos. I want to be able to just help people. And sadly or not, in this world, it's a lot that money can do that. You know, so success for me coincides with money, but success to me where I can sit home, get whatever role on whatever show or movie, and sit down and go, I don't have to balance the budget to buy a protein bar today. I can buy it and not think about it, and then throw $10,000 to my sister tomorrow and not think about it. To me, that success is that pay it forward and pay it back and all that.
Did you think when you started going down this road of acting, I would say that it's on the verge of obsessive, which I think in order to be successful, you almost have to be obsessed with your profession, obsessed with your craft. Do you think that you lost some people in your life along the way?
Absolutely.
It's like they just don't understand your...
Yeah, unquestionably. And I think that's the thing I was talking about, where there's like definitely negative fallout stuff is I'm wired that way. The Green Beret world made it worse, but it was a good asset to have in that world. I think the men in my family are much that way. And so there's this weird trifecta, perfect storm of that obsessiveness. I mean, hell, one of my tattoos says obsessed is one, the undisciplined call the dedicated. So I have the word obsessed tattooed on my body. Nice. And it unquestionably was ruined relationships, ruined my marriage. It definitely strains my family. I've lost friends in this city because of it, because that ruthlessness. And that's the thing. I've said this in speeches, so it sounds like I'm pitching myself. But like, to me, that relentless doesn't mean you're backstabbing somebody. To me, you know, there's definitely, especially in this city, in this industry, there are backstabbing, walk all over you assholes. Yeah. But I always use this metaphor of Everest. This is really meme. It sounds like a walking meme. But on Everest, when somebody dies in front of you, you stop to help them, you'll die.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean you wish them death, but you have to drive on. And that is obsession. But it's also survival. So that's how I treat this city or treat this business. And without even exaggerating, when I go to bed at night, probably every night, I just am on the faith that I'm where like when you're deployed or when you're gone, you're like, oh, this little awkward time in my relationship, I'll be able to fix it. I'll just be able to fix it if,
right.
I'm really counting on that big if, because I know I'm burning or smoldering a lot of bridges.
Right.
And there are times where I'm like, I just need to make it. And then I'll be able to visit my sister. And just like with anything, the ones you love the most are the ones, luckily, that give you a lot of slack, but they're the ones you should probably be worried more about. So far, I still have my family because of this, but I absolutely have lost friends because of that malicious obsession. And not malicious, again, where I want them hurt, but, I've lost one friend specifically in this city. It wasn't like a fallout, like I screwed his wife or nothing like that, but I didn't comprehend empathetically his, what he considered an obstacle or difficult. And I was like, oh, what's your point? So, and that's the very, very short version. And we haven't talked since, and I was like, moving on. The guy on Everest died, moving on. He doesn't want this as bad as I do. And I can think of 3 people today that asked if I can do something tonight, next week, and whatever. And I look at them like, does this fuel, not like I want to take advantage of people, but if the socializing or going out to a bar or just hanging out doesn't fuel my obsession, I most of the time say no.
No, it makes perfect sense.
So yeah, and it's basically the Green Beret, the Q course. But actually, a good doctor friend of mine said this, and I'm sure you were the same way with your service and all these, anybody else listening that was in this service. You had rotations, whether you're deployed or not. Like in the Green Beret world, you had a red cycle, green cycle, and a yellow cycle. Yeah. Red means you're relaxing. Yeah. This is why I'm going to die young, is I'm treating LA like a green cycle, but it's self-induced. So I don't ever go red or go yellow. Yeah. And that's definitely coming at a cost. So it's like, say, being deployed for 2 years, you're going to lose your wife, you're going to lose your friends. And obsession is the thing that keeps you alive, quote unquote. I'm not saying Hollywood is like, surviving and fighting a war for your country, but that obsession is, I actually can't count how many losses I've had. It's for sure.
No, and it makes perfect sense, because I think that if you're not doing things to better yourself and you're allowing other things in the periphery to come into your world, it just derails like kind of the progress that you're making. Yeah. And that's kind of some of the things that I've done lately. Like I stopped drinking over a year ago, and it's like, that was one of those things where like I wasn't some raging alcoholic. Yeah. I just knew that it wasn't making me better. Yeah. It wasn't helping me to recover from my surgery. It wasn't helping me to be a better husband or dad or a friend. So I was like, I don't need that shit.
Yeah. And that's the beautiful conundrum though, is finding, and I hate this fucking word so much, balance. Right. And I'm really poor at that. And again, balance is subjective though. Right. Balance isn't 50-50. 50% of the time I sit on my ass at Venice Beach, 50% of the time I work. Right. Problem is my version of balance is maybe when I sleep for 6 hours, I guess that's my day off. That's my time off. Yeah. But yeah, if it doesn't fuel, using alcohol as a perfect example, how sustainable is it? That's the almighty question to ponder is, this friendship or this nurturing this, is this going to fuel my career or fuel? And actually, one friend specifically asked if they could hang out next week. I not to be too graphic, men, we do 90% of our texting in our day sitting on the toilet taking a shit. So totally. I'm catching up on emails and texts. In fact, I think I saw one of my messages while I was there, and they asked they wanted to go to Disneyland. I was like, that doesn't help me. But one would argue, well, your peace of mind, detoxifying, relaxing should fuel that, Yeah, I agree.
But you'll know when you need that.
Yeah. And I don't let it unwire that, like that's where I'm admittedly slightly unhealthy. And that's why, like I said, I do have a Mount Everest slew of dead frozen bodies behind me.
No, and it makes perfect sense. I mean, even with the podcasting game, it's like, I've had people hit me up and be like, hey, let's do a podcast. And it's like, well, where do you live? And it's like, I live on the other side of the country or whatever. And it's like, but if it doesn't like kind of jive with what I'm trying to do, like, I don't mean to be an asshole, but like, I need to be smart about what business decisions I'm making.
Sure. And I mean, that's why I have this tattoo, triage. I mean, I don't use triage like you and I did medically. I use it like, literally, is this thing going to not kill me, but how does this thing actually help me or benefit me? And it's just, you filter the shit out of your yeses and your no's.
Makes perfect sense, man. I'm going to ask you a couple questions that I ask everyone that comes on real quick. If you had one person or one book in your life that inspired you the most, it could be both. Who would that person be, and what would that book be, and why?
Yeah. Makes it sound like I don't read all of a sudden. Person. Man, I sound like a self-centered asshole. That's a good question. I would say probably my dad. He didn't, like I said, his existence created who I am. Yeah. There's a thing he's very hard on himself. He says he's actually posted this on God Bless Social Media. He goes, you turned into the man I wish I would have been. And I'm like, I am who I am because of my environment. So right. He'll post this fucking meme all the time. I'm like, God damn it, Dad. It's not like you didn't have a say in who I was. And so good, bad, or different, I am who I am because of that world, that environment, and there's definitely, I remember my wife was talking to a bunch of cousins' wives and uncles' wives. The Bosley men are all the same. They all had a lot of the same hatred about their current husbands. Right. But those strengths for what I try to do and how I am are strengths. They're not good in other worlds, but I got who I am because, a big chunk of who I am because of my father. Book wise, I don't think I even have an answer for that. Like, my books were always like movies and soundtracks for some weird reason. Like those were my motivators. Yeah. No book.
No, some people don't like have a book. They'll do people. Some people
I read a ton of books, but I don't got shit.
It's all good, man.
The Bible.
Yeah. That's what you're into, man. That's what floats your boat. The other one is if you had one lesson that you learned along your journey mm-hmm. that you wish you could tell a younger Jeff or somebody else that's coming up in the world, what would that lesson be, and why would that be the one you'd want to teach them to save them like the heartache?
That's a good one. I would, if I could tell my younger version, like my lesson would be, I guess, don't second guess yourself. Embrace it. I think a lot of what I do daily now, whether it's present tense guilt or retroactive guilt, I always question what I've done because of whether it's societal or environmental standard that makes me kind of hesitate and wonder. And fortunately I fight through it, but that's definitely something I think, especially in this fucking world of social media and crazy high standards. Right. I think I would tell myself, when you make a decision or when you see something you want, just don't question it. Don't, I guess, worry what other people think, or don't. I always had this weird, like, second 2 or 3 beat thing before I committed to something. Yep. And then when I did, it was 1 billion%. But that's, I mean, even now I'm 40 and I'm like, is this really what I should do? Should I have said yes to that friend to go to Disneyland? And that's no way to live. Just, I would say, commit to your instincts and don't question that, because guilt and regret suck.
No, big time. Yeah. And I've that's been a process for me. I'm 37 and I'm learning. I'll be 38 this year, and I'm still learning that. Yeah. Of like the somebody, I think it's an AA thing, or I don't know where it comes from. Maybe it's AA, I don't know. But to thy own self be true. Yeah. And it's like, yeah. Totally. Because like, I think a lot of us, and I can see it from you. You have a good heart, so like you don't want to let people down. Yeah. You don't want to be a bummer. You know what I mean? It's like, I don't want to be a dick, but at the same time, like, I'm on a mission, man. I'm doing my thing.
Well, yeah. Well, and that's that triage thing that I mean, I'm a hypocrite. Like, I could probably, positive motivation speech all day long and then hypocritically ignore everything I say. But at the end of the day, you learn this, I'm sure, when you were in EMT school, the very first thing you got to take care of yourself, and then your teammate, and then your boss. Yep. And there are days where, I wish people would. Obviously, we live in a very selfish world, but and then you have kids. Obviously, that's a different thing for you. Obviously, that's a second, third order effect where you got to think about the fallout. But I think a lot of people should embrace that, take care of themselves if they have a good heart. Like, obviously, if they're at home planning to murder people and wear them for a skin suit, that person. But like you said, I do know I have a good heart, right. But fuck, sometimes I'm like, this still isn't enough. I'm still, I have a good heart, but I'm working hard, but I'm neglecting my mom, and that's the almighty, well, what do you do,
Yeah. I've been, I had those struggles, but like I said, like lately I've been really coming to my own of being like, hey man, I have a goal. I know where I'm headed. As long as like home team is okay. Like my wife and my kids are all good. Yeah. Unfortunately, the other people, like, it's just,
that's what I was going to ask is, it's obviously a simple, the the question people ask, but like, did kids change that? Like, if I had kids, I know I couldn't be the way I am now because I'd be a horrible father.
Right.
You know, my dog gets neglected.
It did. I mean, I think I'm more present now than I ever was, because like what would happen for me is like I would have a goal or I would be doing something, and that I was just hyper focused on whatever that was, like laser focused. And I would be at home, but I would still be at work. You know, I wasn't really paying attention at all to anything. And lately it's been like, I've been coming like where it's like, hey man, like when I'm at work and I'm doing what I need to do. When I'm at home, I need to be more present and be here for them. I mean, they're looking at me doing facial expressions or just wanting to get my attention. And I need to like, I'm going to miss out on these opportunities. You know, I'm not going to get to redo this shit. And I'm still guilty of it. Like I'm on my phone way too fucking much. I'm, you know, not really in the present a lot. And it's like, so I'm constantly reminding myself, all right, put it down. Like you can do that later. And so what I've been trying to get better at doing is like scheduling my time. So it's like, okay, from this time to this time is social media time or whatever I need to do, networking, connecting with people. This time to this time is family time. I don't even answer my phone. Like I don't have time for it. So just trying to like schedule that out. I'm still, like I said, I'm not perfect at that shit at all. But it is a work in progress. So I think with kids, before kids and even after, I think I was still kind of like a selfish dick, you know, like I had my goals and my aspirations and I didn't care about, I mean, I was married and divorced and, you know, and I just, and part of that, you know, it was for the better, definitely the divorce and everything. And I think I'm a way better dad as a result. But I think part of it was I was just in that zone of like, I didn't give a shit about anybody else. Like I was on a mission, I was doing my thing. And so I'm kind of doing that with the podcasting where it's like, I have a goal and a vision, but I'm sharing it with my wife. I'm telling my wife and I'm telling, hey, this is what I want to do. This is the goal. This is the vision. And she supports it. And if she didn't, it just wouldn't work.
Well, I think it seems like if something, I mean, unless you're, like you said, unless you're truly down to the core, a complete asshole, if something is depending on you for survival, good people will be able to step up and make that work. But then but if a wife technically doesn't need you for survival, but a child, you know, literally needs you to survive. So I think that's why a lot of us have ex-wives, because we're like, all right, you'll be there when I quit focusing so hard. Definitely. You know, and they're like, no, I won't. But a kid, you're like, well, your kid's dead if you neglect them that bad.
Totally, man. And I think with my wife, if the more that she supports what I'm doing, the better that I do it.
For sure.
You know what I mean? Like if there's been times where she's pissed off, you know, it's like, you're fucking traveling so much and like, I'm here with the kids, you know, and this and that. And so I send her flowers and we try to make it cool, you know, whatever. And then I do better. So
well, I mean, it is. I mean, that's the thing is I think there's some, I'm going to butcher it, but I think it was like some Men's Health article where like they're talking about like neurosurgeons and how a lot of them tend to be OCD or whatever. And I'm like, that's the person I want to have OCD, you know, is a neurosurgeon, somebody operating on my dome. But people that are good at what they do or passionate about what they do or just really driven at what they do, sometimes that inherently is going to come at a loss. So to be successful at this drive, you might be single for the rest of your life, or you might be OCD, but I wouldn't want like a neurosurgeon to get remedied. I wouldn't want him to go to therapy for OCD to turn it off, because maybe he's a goddamn good neurosurgeon because of that OCD, but it's at a cost for social skills, you know? So I think, but at the end of the day, I think we're animals that want companionship.
For sure.
So having a woman, or in the whatever world, having that person, that partner, like it's huge fuel.
Happiness is best shared, man. And when the other part is happy, when the other partner is happy, it just makes for a more cohesive, like, you know, I guess a tranquil environment, peaceful, like whatever it's called.
Nice. That woosah, that moment of like, cool. Definitely. I'm not in this alone.
Well, dude, I'm super pumped to like see like what ends up happening with you, like what movies you get and what gigs you get, you know. I can feel like your passion, man. And I think that like I said, I think success comes from being obsessive. It comes from being obsessed. And you could see it, man. That's where kind of where you are right now.
And I think
and most people, I think, like at your age, even, I'm not saying you're old, but people be like, oh geez, I haven't accomplished it yet, and they just give up. They just give up on their dreams, you know. And that's, to me, that's death. If you're not evolving and trying to be better every day, I'd rather be dead.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, absolutely. And that's the thing is I'd rather be I'd rather be dead. It's like, oh fuck, I'm not 18 anymore.
Yeah, for sure. Do you have any regrets about anything that you've done thus far in this journey?
That's a fresh one. I regret my no regret tattoo.
Do you really?
No, I do because it's pretty lame after the movie
It's
came
so
out.
funny. I keep asking you questions about, and then you happen to have a tattoo, and I didn't see the tattoo. I wish I could say that I saw it and that just gave me the segue to the question, but
no. I'm actually getting it removed because for movies they don't like tattoos, so that's the one that's hardest to hide when I roll my sleeves up.
Yeah,
but ironic. By saying, this is a huge disclaimer, by saying what I'm going to say I regret implies I'm not over my ex-wife, which I am.
Right.
But I regret that decision so, I don't want to say haphazardly, but I regret not being who I am today, being at that point in my life. Right. I was very much like you were saying, maybe pre-kids we didn't have kids, but I was a very narrow-minded asshole. And I realize the value, time goes by and you realize the value, whether it's companionship or you've changed or evolved. And I'm not in combat. I'm not in a Green Beret. I'm like, oh, I appreciate this artsy fartsy shit. I regret that moment in life hurting another person because I was the one that asked for the divorce. I'm glad. I mean, we're both better off, but I really feel this is coincidentally recent discussion with one of my friends. That person didn't deserve to be hurt. Yeah. Is this woman? She may hear this for all I know. But yeah, that's a huge regret is hurting her because she didn't deserve her. There was no affair or anything like that. I abandoned somebody that was counting on me.
Right.
So that
makes perfect sense, man. I can say the same thing with my marriage. Was like I'm definitely over my ex-wife, and I'm so glad that we're not married.
Same.
However, you can look at it as an adult and as a mature human being to be like, you know what, like. Just owning your side of the fence and saying, you know what, I could have done better.
Yeah.
I could have been a better dude. You know what I mean? Like, and I wasn't, and I was, whatever the case may be.
Yeah. When I think guys like us or the world, especially your audience and a lot of people you've had on there's a white knight protector gene in us.
Totally.
That's why we went to serve, or that's why we were EMTs or firefighters. That is there, good, bad, or indifferent. So obviously we've probably all had relationships where we're like, I hope you burn in hell. Totally. But the ones that you don't want to burn in hell, you're like that weird protector thing is like, I don't want to be with you, but I still don't like seeing you hurt, right. And I think but sometimes the ones where you want to burn in hell, those are the easier ones to move on.
Totally. Absolutely, man. Well, hey, dude, I'm super pumped that we were able to get this podcast
Finally.
Out, man. Totally.
Sorry
dude.
for absurd amount of delay.
No, it's all good, man.
I didn't address that. That was ridiculous.
Totally cool. We were trying to get this thing going. I don't know, maybe
2 years.
I mean, it was a while.
It was all the city's fault.
Nah, but it's all good. I'm glad that we were able to get it done.
Fine, yeah, for sure.
Because my traveling schedule is going to pick up in a couple days here, so I'm going to be like hitting the road hard this month. But man, I'm like I said, man, I'm super grateful for you, and I'm glad that we're able to make it happen, and I'm excited to see what's in your future, man.
It'd be awesome.
Because I think it's a good lesson for all of us, man. We could all look at you and what you're doing, and for me, it's like you're living your purpose. You're living your dream. To me, that's inspired action. That's you went against every logical thing that somebody would tell you to do, and it's completely illogical what you did.
For sure.
But you're like, you know what? I believe in myself enough, and that's what I'm going to do.
For sure.
And I think that's why maybe your dad looks at you and says, you know what, like you're the man that I wish I was.
Yeah.
Because I think a lot of people get to a certain point in their life where they're like, man, I could have done that, should have done that, would have done that.
For
and
sure.
They didn't, and they regret it.
Yeah, for sure.
And you're not going to have that problem, man.
To be determined.
That's right, brother. That's right, man. Well, thank you again,
Thanks,
brother.
man. This is awesome.
All right, brother. We'll talk soon.
Yeah.
Thank you for listening to My Backstory. Stay motivated and stay connected off the show. Follow at my_backstory_ to be a part of the journey to recovery and to see where your story goes. Or visit us online at hereismybackstory.com.